Hello world! Today I'm going to show you how to display different layouts for fragments that change when the user rotates the device. User input from an edit text widget will be retained, as well as on-click functionality for a button. I will also show you how to handle navigation using the back button for loading previous fragments. This video covers a lot of material. If you are coding along, be prepared to press the pause button. Otherwise, download the source code from my website. Now let's create our Android application. Open up Android Studio and click on Start a new Android Studio project. Give your application a name and then click on Next. Select the desired SDK and click on Next. Select Empty Activity and then click on Next. Leave the default name for the activity and then click on Finish. And for the activity main.xml layout, delete the text view and replace it with a frame layout, making sure the width and height are equal to match parent. Also give your frame layout an ID. Open the Android manifest file. Inside of the activity tag, set an attribute for config changes to orientation and screen size. Right-click on the package for your activity. Select New, Fragment, Fragment Blank. Give your fragment a name. This one we're just going to call Blank Fragment, and then click on Finish. For the Java file for the new fragment, the only change that we're going to need to make is what the class extends. Make sure that it extends android.app.fragment. Once again, right-click on your package and select New, Fragment, Fragment Blank. Give your fragment a name. Here we're calling this one Main Activity Fragment, and then click on Finish. Much like the blank fragment, make sure this one extends android.app.fragment also. Now delete everything that's inside the class. Import your dependencies, create the 5 private variables that you see here, and create an empty constructor. Create a method called InitializeUserInterface. Add an if statement to check if the container is in fact instantiated, and if it is instantiated, remove all views from its layout. Next, write some code to check the orientation of the device. If the orientation is portrait, then we're going to load one layout. Otherwise, if it's landscape, then we're going to lay a different layout. Make sure that whatever value you have for r.layout. Whatever it is you're calling your fragment layout matches the name of the XML file with the appropriate layout. Instantiate an edit text, a text view, and a button using the findViewById method. Now set the text of the text view to display the orientation of the device. Also, we can add some code here to check the screen resolution of the device. Now if we're working with a device with a low screen resolution, we may want to adjust the font accordingly. And here you can see on lines 60 and 61, that's exactly what's happening. Now create an on-click listener for your button. When the button is clicked, it's going to execute a yet-to-be-defined method from our main activity called loadFragment. And what it'll actually do is simply load the blank fragment that we have already created. Now create your override method for Oncreateview. Instantiate the container and the inflator for the class, and display the desired layout and return the view by calling the InitializeUserInterface method. Next, override the OnConfigurationChanged method. This method will be called when the user rotates the device. Save any text that the user may have already typed into the edit text widget. Create the new layout with your InitializeUserInterface method. Display the text that the user has already typed, and then display the new layout onto the screen by adding the view to the container. Just in case there's something that needs to happen that we've overlooked, we're going to call the OnConfigurationChanged method from the superclass. Now open your main activity fragment XML file. Where we have the default text view, we're going to change this to have 3 widgets: an edit text, a text view, and a button. Each of them will have their own unique ID. Set each of their widths and heights to wrap content and add some text to your button. Now change the frame layout tag to a linear layout tag and give it an orientation attribute of vertical. When you're done, your layout should look something like this. Now right-click on the fragment layout and copy it. Right-click on the layout folder and paste the file that you just copied. Now modify the name a little bit here. We're calling this one Fragment Main Activity Horizontal. Whatever name you have here, make sure that it matches what you had in your main activity fragment class. The one change we're going to make to this file is to change the orientation. Make sure that it's equal to horizontal. And after you make that change, it should look something like this. Go to your main activity class, import your dependencies, create a private variable for your frame layout, then create a method called loadFragment. Inside the method, remove all views from your frame layout, and then load a new fragment to the layout by getting the fragment manager and executing the transaction. Note on line 24 where it says add to backstack. When you add this method to the transaction, it will keep track of each fragment that you have loaded so that when the user pushes the back button, they will see the previous fragment that they had loaded. And now we're going to override the onBackPressed method. This may not be necessary in all cases, but there are times when it may need to be done. If you're in a situation when you're testing your application and fragments are overlapping each other when the back button is pressed, then you need to have this method instantiated. If your frame layout is instantiated, make sure you remove all views from it, then get your fragment manager for the activity, and check the number of backstack entries. If it's greater than 1, then just call the pop backstack method to display the previous fragment and return out of the function. Otherwise, there's no significant fragments for the user to view, so just call the onBackPress method from the superclass and exit the application. And then finally, inside of your onCreate method, instantiate your frame layout and then load your main activity fragment. And that's all there is to it. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching.